Some rooms offer a view. This one offered something else entirely. Nate had been on the road for nearly 11 hours. He wasn't even sure what state he was in anymore. The green highway signs had become sparse, and the ones that remained were half obscured by vines or riddled with rust. His phone had stopped picking up a signal after his last gas stop, a lonely station tucked beneath a rotting billboard with peeling words he didn't recognize. The radio gave up too. First static, then complete silence. The storm came in hard, not lightning and thunder, just that steady, drenching kind of rain that turns the whole world into blurred shadows and sliding shapes. His headlights barely cut through it. His GPS froze completely, just a blinking blue arrow circling a blank map. And when the fuel light came on, a kind of quiet dread began to take root. That's when he saw the sign. It wasn't lit, just a crooked wooden board on the side of the road, leaning sideways as if ashamed to still be standing. Painted in large white letters, motel. No name, no arrow, just motel. He turned down the narrow road anyway. What else could he do? The driveway was cracked and overgrown, with weeds growing up through the asphalt like veins. The building itself was a squat, two-story strip of dull concrete and darkened windows. A neon sign hung from a rusted bracket near the office door. Just the words motel flickering in red. There were no other cars, except one, a faded station wagon with its windows fogged and its tires sunken halfway into the gravel. He stepped into the front office, where the fluorescent lights hummed weakly overhead. It smelled like damp carpet and old heat. Behind the counter sat a man with eyes like overcast skies. They were pale, watery, and uninterested. He looked like he hadn't moved in days. "You open?" Nate asked. The man didn't answer. He just reached below the desk and placed a key on the counter, attached to a dark green plastic tag. Room 17. "It's at the end of the top floor," he said quietly. "Only one with a window." That gave Nate pause. The only one? The man didn't look up. Most of them face the wall now, after the fire. This one is different. Nate waited for more explanation, but that was all he got. So he took the key. The stairs creaked with each step. The rain hadn't let up, just turned to mist, clinging to the railing and sliding across the floor in thin grey sheets. At the end of the hall, room 17 waited. Its door was a slightly different color than the others. It looked newer, like it had been replaced. The paint around the frame still bore soot stains. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room smelled of dampness and time. The wallpaper curled in the corners, and the bedspread was patterned with a floral design faded into nothing. The lamp buzzed when switched on. The carpet crunched faintly underfoot. But the strangest thing was the window. It spanned the entire far wall, unusually large for a place like this. It was framed by heavy, moth-bitten drapes and looked out into absolute darkness. No light, no trees, no roads, and no sky. At first, Nate assumed it was just nightfall. Maybe the woods behind the building were thick. But something about it didn't make sense. There weren't even stars, no reflection. The window felt less like glass and more like a wall of ink. He pressed his hand to it. It felt cold. No, not just cold, freezing, like the glass had been pulled from a freezer. It was colder than anything in the room. His skin even stuck slightly to it before he pulled away. Nate closed his curtains that night. Something about the room itched his nerves. The light bulb in the bathroom flickered without reason. The faucet leaked in a slow, arrhythmic drip. But worse was the sound that began around 2:13 a.m. A soft ticking. Not mechanical, not sharp, just a soft, steady tick. Like the sound of a thin fingernail tapping glass. He turned on the light, sat up, and the sound stopped. Nate looked toward the window, and the curtains were open. He didn't remember opening them. Beyond the glass, that same black void stared in. It felt closer now, like the glass had thickened, or thinned, like there was less separating him from whatever was outside. Nate got up and stood a foot from it, looked at his own reflection, and saw something else. Behind him, reflected in the glass, was a second figure. Tall, narrow, and unmoving. Just standing in the far corner of the room, still as death. He turned back to the window, but the figure was gone. The next morning didn't come. By the clock, it was 8:42 a.m., but the light through the window hadn't changed. Still black, still empty, and still cold. Nate went to the front office, but the man was gone. The desk clean and dusty, and the rack on the wall held all the keys. Room 1 through 16 hung neatly and untouched. Except one hook was bare. Room 17. He ran around to the back of the building to see what his window was facing. But there was no view. No clearing, no forest, no cliff. Just a wall. A flat concrete wall with no window. Just blank concrete where room 17 should have faced. Panicked now, he ran back upstairs. The door to room 17 was still there, open a crack. So he stepped inside. It was the same room, same faded bedspread, same buzzing lamp, but the bag he had packed was gone, and the window was still there. But this time there was no reflection, only darkness. And in that darkness, something began to move. Slowly, like a ripple in black paint. Not approaching, not receding, just watching. Nate slowly reached for the doorknob, but it wouldn't turn. There was a keyhole, but it was on the wrong side. The door was locked. If you ever find yourself lost on a back road and come across a motel with no name, with flickering red letters and a key tagged room 17, don't stay. Because that room doesn't face the outside world. It looks into something else. And if you look too long, it learns to look back. And it never blinks. The diner never closed, but something about the place made it feel like it should have. The highway diner sat just off Route 37, tucked behind a rusted gas station and a broken fence no one remembered building. It had no name on the sign anymore, just a sun-bleached outline where the letters used to be. Locals still called it the Midnight Spoon, though no one could say why. Travis had started working there a few weeks ago. Night shift, 10 p.m. to sunrise. Not glamorous, but quiet. The kind of job where you mostly cleaned, served the odd trucker, and listened to the radio until morning. The tips were decent, the coffee was strong, and the owner, Walt, didn't ask too many questions. But Walt had one rule. Don't go near table 9, he told Travis on his first night. Just leave it be. Why? It's always taken. That would have been funny if Walt weren't that serious. He was the type who didn't joke much anyway. Tall, wiry man with tired eyes and a cigarette always half smoked between his fingers. He didn't elaborate further, just handed Travis a key to the supply room and told him to ignore whatever he thought he saw out of the corner of his eye. And so Travis did. For the first few nights, it was easy. The booths were usually empty. The jukebox sometimes played by itself. And the regulars, what few there were, never sat at 9. Nobody did. But the table always looked used. There was always a glass of water there, always a clean fork and knife, and always Always a sugar packet torn open and left in a little pile. Like someone had just stirred their coffee. By the second week, Travis stopped cleaning that table altogether. And one night, around 2:45 a.m., a couple came in. They were young, loud, and maybe a little drunk. They slid into a booth near the back, laughing too hard at something, and called him over to order. Travis got their coffees, took their order, and brought them eggs and toast. But when he turned around, they were sitting at table 9. He froze. "Hey, we moved," the woman said cheerfully. "The lights are better here. You forgot the ketchup." Travis didn't move. You can't sit there." The guy raised an eyebrow. "Why not? It's not reserved." You just can't." "Dude," the man laughed. "It's a booth." Travis backed away, unsure what to say, unsure why his chest felt tight, why the hair on his arm stood up. He walked into the kitchen and found Walt there, staring through the pass-through window, his jaw tight. "They said at 9, Travis said. "I know. What do I do?" "Nothing. But they won't finish their meal." And sure enough, when Travis went back out a few minutes later, the booth was empty. Not just the couple gone. The plates were clean. Not half-eaten, not touched. Just clean, like they had never been used. He checked the register. No payment. No sign of them at all. Then he looked at the window. The blinds on table 9 shifted gently, just once, like someone was sitting there again, watching him. A few nights later, Travis was alone. Walt hadn't shown up. The clock on the wall read 3:07 a.m. The diner was silent, save for the soft crackle of the jukebox, playing some old country song that wasn't on the playlist. Travis was mopping near the counter when he heard it. The sound of a cup being set down. He turned to table 9. Steam rose from a mug of coffee. Black, no cream, no sugar. The chair was pulled out slightly, as if someone had just stood up. But Travis hadn't poured that coffee. In fact, he hadn't even made coffee in hours. And then he saw the man. He was tall, thin, wearing a black button coat and old shoes, too shiny to be modern. He stood just outside the glass door, facing the highway, perfectly still. Travis stared at him and didn't blink. The man turned and entered without a sound, walked past the counter and sat down at table 9. He didn't speak, didn't look up. The man just slowly stirred his coffee with a tiny metal spoon. Once, twice, then he placed it neatly beside the cup. Travis couldn't move. Something about that man made time feel wrong. Like the clock had slowed down just a little. The air felt thicker, too warm. Then the man raised his eyes and smiled. Not cruelly, not kindly, just knowingly, and said, "You forgot the sugar." Travis stumbled backward, knocking a tray to the ground, and when he looked back, the booth was empty again, the coffee untouched, and the spoon gone. The next night, Walt came back. I saw him," Travis said. Walt just nodded. Most do, eventually. Who is he?" Walt looked at the booth, eyes heavy. "He was a waiter years ago, before my time. Used to work the late shift. Same uniform you wear, same hours. They say he took care of everyone, no matter what. Even the folks who came in after closing." Walt paused. "Problem was, we don't close." Travis felt cold. What happened to him? He started sitting down. What? Started taking breaks. Started acting like the customers. Ordering food, stirring coffee, pretending to be one of them. Until one night, he stopped talking altogether. Just sat at 9 and never left. Walt looked at Travis then. A table remembers its favorite waiter. Travis doesn't mop anymore. He just brings out coffee at 3 a.m. Table 9 always has a cup waiting now. And if you ever stop by the Midnight Spoon and sit near the window, don't ask for Travis. He is still there. He just doesn't take orders anymore. And he never leaves his seat.